So today, we hear about Jesus sending out the 12 on mission. And it's important for us to always remember this, that when we're baptized to go out on mission. And we're preparing in our baptism. And then in confirmation, there's this moment in which we're, in a sense, confirmed in that mission. We're empowered to, in a sense, go from base camp and to start bringing Christ into the world. And that's into your sports team, that's into your family, that's into the place where you go to eat at the restaurant, that's where you go when you work a job, all these different things. So Jesus is also giving us practical tips on how to go out on that mission. So the first one, he's summoning the 12, and he sends them out 2 by 2. Why do you think he wants to send them out 2 by 2 instead of just solitary? If you think about it, think about even in the military. You have a fighter pilot, and there's usually 2 people in an F-14 Tomcat, one to look behind and one to look in front. And not only that, you don't just send one airplane by themselves, because there could be enemy fighters around. You always need a wingman. You always need someone there to be able to help in a situation. Having 2 people allows you to watch your back and watch the other person's back. And have you ever noticed in any of the stories that you read, think of your favorite story, usually when someone breaks away from a group, they're usually weaker. Have you ever heard in those stories where maybe there's a group that's strong? You can even think of like the Avengers and Captain America and Civil War and that kind of thing. When you break apart a group and they start just doing their own thing, they're far weaker and it's so much easier to take them out. But when you come together, then there's strength. So that's why the Lord is saying, go out 2 by 2, which means make sure that you have a prayer buddy. You know, we're supposed to grow in friendship, but make sure the friends that we're growing with is someone that would be able to get you to heaven. And maybe a challenge for you when you chat on your social media or you hang out and stuff like that, what are you talking about? Have you ever thought to maybe pray for one another? Have you ever done that when you're playing your video games and you're talking through the headset? Do you say, hey, how about before we begin, why don't we just pray for one another? What do you need prayers for? Or maybe when you're out on recess and maybe just walking and, imagining and just having fun, what about stopping for a moment and saying, hey, maybe one of our friends was having a difficult time, or maybe there's something going on in my family. Maybe we could just pray a Hail Mary for him right now. Have we ever maybe reached out to our friends and just say, how are you doing? How's your relationship with God? What does it look like? Can you share it? The more that we can learn how to do that now, we actually become stronger in our faith. Because what the enemy wants us to think, what the devil wants us to think is we have to do our faith just as a private thing. We just kind of do our thing and other people do their thing. And yet we're called a family. And we're called soldiers in a battle. And soldiers don't try to do their thing just by themselves. Imagine a whole army in which each solitary soldier runs at the fortress. They're not going to last long. Imagine an invasion in which the general is like, all right, one guy, go for it. And then he gets mowed down. All right, next guy, go for it. Next guy. And they go through 1 million people, and it's like, this isn't working. It's like, of course it's not going to work. You can only overtake the fortress if you're working as an army. Or think of playing soccer or basketball. If you just take the ball and just try to run to the goal or to the basket without passing, without working as a team, the defense is just going to swallow you up. So go out 2 by 2. Think about now, who's a friend, who's someone that you can reach out to, maybe today, and say, let's pray for one another. Maybe to send them a message. Let's just keep each other in prayer. See what happens with that. You'll become a lot stronger in your faith. That's what Jesus is saying, the way we're supposed to go out, so it's important to listen to his advice. The next thing here is he says, take nothing for the journey but a walking stick. Don't take the extra food, the sack, the money, all these different things. He even says, don't even take a second tunic. Don't even take a second change of clothes. You know what that sounds like? That sounds a lot like backpacking, high adventure. And I used to be a Boy Scout leader. And we went up into the middle of Canada, and we did some backpacking up there, and we went into the Appalachian Mountains and things like that. But something that I learned really, really quickly is don't take extra baggage, even if you think you can carry it at the beginning. Because one of my scouts, we'll call him George, he really had a lot of stuff at the very beginning of his trip. He had he had a chair that he was carrying, like a big chair, not even just a little camp stool. He had a chair on his backpack. He had extra pounds of snacks just in case. I mean, it was like a bag this big. He had a video game system. I don't know how he had that on the trail, but he had a video game system. Maybe battery powered or something like that. He probably had a television in there. And he was like, no, I can carry all this. Because he was a big guy. He was a tough guy. And we're like, George, you're going to die on the trail if you're carrying a TV and all this stuff. And he's like, no, I need all this stuff. It'll be fun. So he was good for about 5 minutes. And then he started to go, man, this is kind of tough. This backpack's a little heavier than I thought. We're like, George, let go of this stuff. He's like, no. And pretty soon he was like dropping things. And he's like, okay, I'm going to have to leave this chair here. I'm going to leave this video game system here, because he just couldn't carry it anymore. And so we have to make sure, if we're going on mission, what are the things that are in our lives that maybe are just getting in the way of hearing Jesus, loving God, and loving others? One of the ways in which we become weak as disciples, as missionaries, is that we get too comfortable with stuff, with noise. We kind of surround ourselves with so much busyness that we don't have time for God. Have you ever felt that before, where you're hearing, I need to pray more, and you're like, I don't have time for prayer? You know who was really, really busy was Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And you know what she said? She said, if you're too busy for prayer, one, it means you're too busy, but also it means you need to pray more. So think about, what are the things that you're carrying? And you're like, God, I'm sorry, I just have all this other stuff right here. God, you got to understand, I got to hang out for about 3 hours on social media or play Minecraft, to be able to do that kind of stuff. So I don't really have time to talk to you right now. Maybe tomorrow, God. And then we just keep saying that over and over again. So think about, how are you using your schedule, and are you putting God in there first? And so let's just ask the Lord that we can be wise about what we're carrying, but also wise about who is walking with us, so that we can carry each other.